Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of The World of Wonder, the Next Gen Eco production. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome our guest, Mr. George Bock from Luxembourg. He is the CEO and founder of the company Investry, most known for the mobile application, the investment mobile application Moneyflow. And as usual, we are here in the company of Kim. Hello, Kim. How are you doing today?
Hello, thank you, Eric. I'm doing great today, and I'm super excited as well for today's session, especially because of our guest. And he has a mission, actually, which I really like with his platform Moneyflow to make investing affordable and meaningful. So I really like this approach. And of course, we must not forget the exciting and hot questions of our Olisa mascot. I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you, Kim. Hello, George. Thank you very much for joining us today. Can you give us a little introduction, a little opening pitch about Investry and Moneyflow in general?
Hi, Kim. Hi, Eric. Hi, community. Yeah, Moneyflow. Moneyflow is an exciting idea. It starts with this status that we saw that investing was still very hard. Very first thing. And the second thing is that very often investing was just done from a pure financial perspective. And we felt there's something missing in this market where an entire new generation is asking more questions than the past, where people were just investing for getting return. This new generation was asking question, okay, what is going to happen to this world and how going we to live in this place? And so there was a little bit in the financial services space in that was missing, and that is all about Moneyflow. Moneyflow was then conceived to be a product where investment is approachable, is understandable, and it's transparent. And transparent meaning I can as well judge on financial returns as well as on what my money really does. And we have made that in a very specific way, and we're going to discuss that, I guess, during the call. So that's really everything about Moneyflow, is making more participate for their own sake and for the sake of their communities.
Good. Thank you very much. We are really looking forward to dive deeper into this topic. Now, before we do so, we are also interested in the personal journey of the founders we talked to in this show. So could you give us a little bit of insights in your personal journey and what sort of ultimately led you to take this step and to create Investry and the Moneyflow application?
So I'm coming from basically the financial world. I was 30 years at KPMG, and I was more following all the kind of financial aspects. I was basically consulting in the financial services space. And so it gave me a pretty good view on how that industry works, what drives it most. And so when I was end of 40 and beginning of 50, I said, okay, I was now 30 years in that company. Do I still want to do something else out of my life? And then I came to the conclusion I do not want to retire in the place, having stayed there for quite some time, and I needed some new challenge. But also, I really wanted to give it a chance to try really to make this journey from entrepreneurship, which I believe, in KPMG. I was an entrepreneur, somebody that is in a big company, is constantly challenging status quo. That's also what drives me all the day, is I cannot accept seeing things that do not work properly. So as soon as I see something where I feel this doesn't work properly, I have this envy to change it. So that made me an entrepreneur within KPMG. And so I thought, like, okay, why not maybe also trying to make that as an entrepreneur, give it an entrepreneur chance. Then that made that I make a break in my career. Then I started to study again a little bit, because that's also something I wanted after 30 years, refresh your brain. I mean, you can refresh your brain, of course, also by speaking with a lot of interesting people, but you can also refresh it a little bit going back to university. So I was going back a little bit to MIT. And there's one topic, and we're going to speak about it, which drives me every day because I find it so amazing, is everything that goes around blockchain and blockchain technologies and what it can make to this world. And I'm a strong believer it can make this world better, but also more reliable, really more trustworthy. That's my driver in this. So, and that made that at a certain moment, I saw, after all these 30 years, the finance industry evolving, and there is a certain number of things that do not work properly. And then I started to try and being fascinated also by blockchain, I realized that this technology could make a big change in that industry that has nevertheless some problems to address. And that made that I started to analyze the possibility to launch an application that would liaise this, what is investment? How easy is investment? Can it not be made easier? Can it not be made meaningfuler? But also, what is the technology that you need? Because the idea is good, but nevertheless, you need some engines that support it. And all these things are really connected. And so that brought me to this idea to say, okay, it's time again to try to change the world a bit. And so came then this idea of putting an idea together, then putting a team together, very important. And you want to ask maybe some question about entrepreneurship. Definitely, it's a very important one. So putting the right team together, and then coming to this moment where you have to jump, or you stay where you are, but then never think on it again and never complain again. Either do it or forget it completely. And so for me, it was the moment to jump. And here we are, some years later, with a product in hand, an app that is live, and investments that are done.
Thank you very much for this journey that you laid out here. So you said, and I found it very interesting, you said, let's try to change the world again. And I found this very interesting because we haven't spoken very much about it. We will dive deeper into it. But I know also you also contribute quite a lot to a couple of philanthropist organizations. Now, the Money Flow app clearly has sustainability angle. How did this feed into your wish to change the world, those two aspects?
Yeah. So when we spoke about this idea to change the world, but also the sustainability aspect, maybe let's drill that down in different kind of steps. First of all, if you look at it right now, there is 13 trillion, something like that households keep on their savings account. And so that makes more or less 35% of their wealth. And you could then say, so fine, why is that a problem? Well, it is a problem because inflation basically eats up every day your money. And we've made a calculation where we have looked at that. So if you would have had 10,000 euros in the year 2014, and you would have simply left it on your savings account, and by deducting the inflation that is coming, what do you think do you still have in 2024? Kim, give it a chance. From 10,000 in 2014, what is left in 2024?
Well, 13 trillion is already hard to imagine as a number. So I would think I would give you a percentage. It cuts 40% probably into your savings.
Yeah, so if I take the example of 10,000, you would have had 7,300 after in year 2024. Mm-hmm. Now, if you would then go and have invested in a very broad basket, in a normal fund, nothing sexy, what would you have left? So you would have left with 21,000 euros. So imagine what that changed for that individual person over 10 years. Imagine what it makes to his financial freedom. So that is the very first starting point. Why should you consider, and why is this maybe a problem for the people, but also for the economy, that this money sits there and does nothing, or basically maybe that makes the profit of the banks, but not your profit. So it's to say, well, you should really consider. And if your first consideration to sit on the bench is, it is safe to have my money on the savings account, well, let me tell you that one thing is sure, it's safe and it's sure that you lose money every day. So that's the first thing to do. And that's why we really felt like this is a problem for the individuals. We really have to, number one, also help them to educate them. This is a problem, but also then build an easy road for them into the capital market, into the safe way of capital market. Because I fully agree that there is an element, depending on what you do, you can also get trapped and lose money. So what is important is that there is offers in there, and these offers are serious. So that's why we said, like, the very first thing is we have to build up an offer which is serious. For us, an offer that is serious is about long-term investing, not short-term speculation. And then the second is one of the biggest problems that is always there. If investments is not diversified enough, then you can easily lose money. If you're highly diversified, then you do not lose money. And good products, good funds have at least 50 investments. And then that is that really make sure that you are safe. So the very first thing is like, number one, get into that just for your own sake and for your own future. Then number two, I've been confronted to people that have said, well, look, all this money is saying this is the source of all evil in this world. That the planet is where it is because of money. And to a certain extent, they are right. But look, this statement is a little bit of a false statement, because if you look at how we live together in modern societies, you have three ways of at least of influencing your world. Number one is you go to election, and hopefully elections still work. You might not always be happy with the outcome, but with your vote, you have tried to give the world a direction. The second thing is definitely consumption. I mean, I can decide, look, I don't like this product. It does harm and doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to buy that. But that suggests that there are also alternatives in the consumer world that you can easily pull on and that you can take. But that also then suggests that somebody helps companies that want to create alternatives, and that is about investing. That is where I put my money, and with putting my money somewhere, I can give a direction to this world. And I like this idea of micro-voting with investment, because I think it is harder to influence, by the way, the society with politics than with money, for sure. So that's why we should keep that in mind. And so all the people that have said, well, I'm not going to do this because I don't believe in this, at the end of the day, they still have savings, and their bank is deciding what their money does. And if their bank decides to finance any kind of activity that they don't like, well, they have no say. So this is what's this idea like, look, guys, if you're really in it, not only for financial freedom and wealth building purposes, which you should do as an individual, and you think it's all about being bad, think of money like an energy to influence things around you. And I think that can definitely work. So out of this idea was then to say, well, okay, let's try to build an app that integrates that. But then when we started the journey and speaking about sustainability, a word that I find anyhow a little bit dangerous, because it does not, and the consumers, they also told us, but look, or let me put it that way. Why is it a little bit dangerous? Because sustainability means something else for everybody. I'm a sustainable investor. I know that some people say, well, I'm a sustainable investor. Then comes another guy and say, well, no, you're doing this and this and this, and that's not good. And it comes to these kind of questions, for example, what is the sustainable energy source? Is it gas or this intermediary technology that we want to have to be CO2 neutral? Is it gas or atomic energy? Well, you ask a German, he says it's gas. You ask a French, he thinks gas is very bad and it should be atomic energy. So, okay, that drills down another factor. Sustainability is very individual. So, and if sustainability gets individual, then we speak about value. And that's a term I like by far better. It's like value. You invest, you should be able to choose your investment targets along your values. And that is really what we have then said, like the app on the one hand should have safe products, safe product when it comes to investing, and it should have diversified products to make to build long-term wealth. And third, it should be possible to choose my investing along my personal beliefs and values. And that means that we would have to drill down this whole investment decision into different pieces. In order to take into account these individual beliefs of everybody, we felt that it would be good, that it would be possible for sure to exclude certain topics. For example, if you say, well, I do not believe in genetics, so I do not want to be part of the industry that changes stuff, well, then you could take out genetics. If you say, well, I do not want to have tobacco, you take out tobacco. If I do not want to have oil and gas, well, you can take oil and gas. And whatever you choose with your finger, okay, I vote, I take out stuff. Then that is the negative element. So what do I do not want? So the second is, what do I want to support? And in order to do that, of course, and here comes back a little bit, the normal sustainability criteria is ESG. Look, ESG means nothing to a lot of people. While they can still understand a little bit E, which is environment, social in investing world, what does that mean? And governance, is that about a government or what? I mean, a lot of people cannot get that. So we said, like, okay, this is also not going to be hard choices of people. If people want to vote with their hearts on top of their brains, well, most probably we need something that speaks to them. And we found that something which is very interesting, which fits into that criteria is the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It's a kind of nomenclatura which has been blessed by the United Nations, so all the world's nations together. It is the targets to which all the nations want to work to. And so we decided that we would also classify every investment along the degree of achievement for the SDGs. So you could potentially choose, for example, if gender balance is close to your heart, you can choose the fund that favors, that is the champion in gender balance. And that's how we have drilled down this kind of marriage of finance and value together to try to make it the best possible choice for consumers.
Well, thank you very much for this deep dive. If I have to summarize, I would say with Money Flow, you're giving investors, individuals, a tool that allows them to vote with their money, basically, to support the causes and the projects they like, that are close to their heart. You mentioned already the application is live, that investors are making investments every day. Now, before we dive into the hot question, we're looking forward to, could you tell us maybe a little bit more? We have seen in the press recently that Investry has acquired a new type of license, has been granted a new type of license. Can you maybe tell us a little bit what is coming next? What are the next challenges and the upcoming developments for Investry?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. And it allows me also to go one step back, because if you think on it, we have forgot about one element, is make it achievable, make it along your values, but also make it affordable. And make it affordable, definitely for us, what was very important is there are too many inefficiencies in the system that cost money and make service expensive. And there comes the second passion we spoke about, was the passion around blockchain and blockchain technologies and what it can do to stuff that does not work properly or could work better. So you have to understand that we operate on a regulated basis. So we have the same standards than any kind of banks or investment firms. And so we operate our entire system on the blockchain, which allows us to make a really cheap offer, a very affordable offer to consumers. So basically, we do not charge transaction fees and we do not charge custody fees. There's a small wallet loading fee that we have. But this is just possible if you use very modern technology, which is very efficient and very affordable. That brings me to this thing about what are the next steps. So far, because the whole thing is regulated and because we have to interact with the existing financial services world, or we want to interact because they are simply producing this part of the investment products. So we started to just on a limited basis to connect ourselves to the asset management industry. Now, there have been some changes in regulation recently, which allows us, instead of having just this baby step on our platform, to approach the asset managers and to change the entire journey for the investor from the fund to the end investor on the blockchain, with the big consequence that there are by far less intermediaries acting, with the consequence that we operate with cheaper but very efficient systems, and which would make that the experience in the future for our investors are even going to be better, and is also I would not say we cannot make it cheaper than zero. Sorry for that, but for sure it's going to be better and faster, and that is definitely something we want to achieve. That is for the ones that are slightly more techy and regulatory savvy. So we have obtained the license of control agent. A control agent is somebody that can issue regulated shares and financial instruments in the blockchain. And that is really important, is you take the advantage of all these technologies, but you are exactly in the same regulated, safe framework than with a normal bank. The only thing gets just more efficient. And that also brings another development in, is that so far the so-called private assets, so be it very often non-quoted, on stock exchange quoted assets like private equity, private debt, infrastructure, real estate, assets that were typically illiquid, hard to get, and also expensive to get. So that is going to change. We're going to bring that to the reach of all the investors. So the reshuffling of the technology goes hand in hand also with an extended offering that we are planning for Q1, which is bringing alternative assets to a large retail kind of public. And as I said, the categories are, we are going to have 1 or 2 private equity funds. Very interesting, because I mean, it's a little bit, you get the chance really to get to the companies before they get quoted on the stock exchange, which normally has the chance of a higher capital gain. The other element is private debt. I mean, it's clear that the banks, they do not really finance anymore the entire industry. So there are some private people that are giving credit. And so basically, you can get banking margins by investing through these funds, because basically the fund is replacing the bank, giving credit to the industry. And a third is infrastructure. You have some very interesting long-term infrastructure projects whereby, for example, the funds invest in hydrogen filling station, in windmills, windmill parks, one of the typical ones, and all this kind of stuff, which has long-term in contracts with very often utility providers. So if you want to participate, if you want to have a very steady long-term, you want to, for example, for people that want to get away from the ups and downs from the stock exchange, well, you invest in a windmill park that has a steady return of 7%, that's it. You have that, you won't have 15, but for sure you have 7, and that's another kind of investment. And then very often also for a lot of people, real estate is an interesting asset class. So we will bring also that into the space. So that is a little bit the thing. So heavy push on technology, because finally, we got laws and regulations that allow us to shake the trees, to bring Web3 really into banking with the same kind of level of safety and regulation. So there's no more reason to say, well, this is not good enough. It is top quality. That's one big angle. And the second big angle, then hand in hand, then that opens what it really should do, is make it more affordable for everybody to go further and deeper to asset opportunities and investment opportunities that were reserved to the big players in the past.
That's great. So it does sound like the investments or the investment opportunities are kind of brought closer to the different investors. And thinking about infrastructure, I could indeed have an interest in improving my local situation. I don't know if there's a project in my town. Very interesting topic that you raised there. But it is now time for our hot questions that now Kim will jump in to raise those questions that have been formulated by Lisa.
Oh, thank you very much, George. It was really interesting. And I really liked your statement about sustainability, that you said it's more individual. And that's why you're focusing on the personal values. And actually, that is the first question. So we go a little bit deeper in that. And all Lisa would like to know, how does someone even figure out what those values are when it comes to money?
Well, I think what people can have very strong feelings on what they do not want. So that's on this famous exclusion list that I said, like very often it's, you have certain things in life where you say, well, this is definitely, I'm out of this. And whatever it's going to be, I mean, if I would give you a list, and I think like, what is definitely not in, let me take something which is most hopefully and most probably for most of us a no-go, is, for example, children work, okay? Well, honestly, if you give me the choice between 12% return and 10% return, and the 12 require children to go mining, well, number one, I think that some people should go to prison, and number two, I'm not interested, full stop, okay? So I think you have, if you really examine a little bit your conscious, you have clear no-goes. And you should really then also try to work on the no-goes. So that is something I believe which is important. And I spelled it like that. I mean, we are not in, Eric, you have spoken about non-profit engagement that you can take. Everybody should also take non-profit engagement, but let's not, for me, if I invest, it's about profit. So I still want to have my 7-8% of return if I invest in shares, and my expectation of long term is that to have like a 7 to 8 over 10 years. That's my minimum expectation, which, by the way, is feasible if you play the long term and not the short term, not the market in, market out. By the way, this is important. I want to say that. I mean, if you look at the market in, market out, if you look at some of these trading platforms, they have to give their statistics. Some others don't. That's a strange part of regulation. But in most of these short-term trading platforms, around about between 65 to 75% of individuals are losing money. So don't try to beat the market. It's a very, very okay. It might be funny, then play a little bit with it, but that's not long-term wealth building. That is something which people should keep in mind. So rather, instead of time the market, spend time in the market. So the longer you're in, the better it is. And maybe I should also have mentioned that the curve of being in the market, you can double every 7 to 8 years if you do it well. So that means 2 gets 4, 4 gets 8, and 8 gets 16. Yeah, double. So that means after 30 years, if you put in $1 million in, you have 16 million. If you put 100,000 in, you have 1.6 million. So that's a safe way to build something. But coming back to your question on, so that's the one thing, what I do not want to do. What gets slightly harder is then, okay, what do I really want to push? I think from that perspective, I would say the following. Also there, I do not believe in a strategy where I say, for example, I just want to push the clean energy and all my investments should be in clean energy. Number one, it's not maybe very diversified from a financial perspective. Number two, it's not very diversified from a sustainability planning, because not everything which is clean energy, for example, some of these clean energy kind of things go against the protection of certain areas of the nature. All in life has to be balanced out. So I would say, like, for sure you have 3-4 topics that are close to your heart. And what I generally do, I choose my investments and then I check my SDG balance and I see whether it fits. I think you can have 2 approaches there. Either you are really focused on the sustainability bit or the value bit, and you choose along your values. I have to say what I generally do is I have 1 or 2 principles, as I told you. And on the other hand, I'm choosing a plan which is diversified from a financial perspective. And then I check whether I'm happy with my balance. And it has already happened that I kicked out certain things because I say, not good. I don't like that. So I find just simply a replacement. But generally, to be honest, I start on it from the financial perspective, diversification, topics that I like from financially. Then I check my sustainability balance, my exclusions. Is there any stuff that they invest in that I do not like? And it might well be then I kick out, but I simply find something else that's absolutely feasible. So that's, I think, a little bit up to everybody to do that. But I think if you give yourself a little bit of reflection, like 15 minutes, you get a pretty good feeling what your priorities are.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And also that you shared about your personal investment strategy when it comes to values. Let's catch up on this, actually, because the next question from Lisa is that you're building that platform that changes how people invest. But what's one belief you had to unlearn yourself along the ways?
Yeah, I think 2, 3 things. Like, the journey brought me back into the eyes of somebody that is not knowledgeable in finance. Because I've worked 30 years in finance, and all of a sudden you get to a certain of level where you think this is a normal understanding of everybody and everybody should know. Brought me also back into these calculations, what inflation does to your money, really to calculate and to explain it to people in figures so that they fully grasp it. Okay, now I can count it, now it speaks to me. So this element of, and which brought me then also into initiatives that we're doing, which is called the Money Flow Investing School. So where we really try to give to people, for all the people that don't feel comfortable to make these decisions, really to give them safety, give them a safety net, try to be within that safety net, and then you can do reasonable safe, or you can do safe decisions. But that is one thing that came in. The second thing is like this question about individuality when it comes to values, and what is a world we want to live in, and how everybody has different kind of ideas, and how it is important then to accommodate everybody, instead of saying, well, you all have to follow this rule. I tell you what it is, and now you choose this. No, that makes no sense. So getting back into that, so that is It's really this individuality, which is absolutely logical, but which only comes out if you speak to a lot of people. And they say, okay, we have to fix this. And if not, it's not going to work. That's, by the way, also, I think, what financial industry right now lacks. It is not individual enough. It's not tailored enough. The last thing, which is very personal, is when I was at KPMG, I had some 1,700 mates with whom I could make a battle. If you are a team of a dozen or 14, you have to unlearn certain habits and learn certain habits again, which is like, if I say we should do this, basically I speak to myself. So no, but no, of course, the team, I have a very powerful team. And by the way, it's when making an entrepreneur journey, it's very important. And hopefully you can choose a little bit your shareholders. That is important. Key element is choosing your team. You need a team where you can rely on. You need a team that is able to shake the world, because you have to change in the journey several times. And if the team is not ready to fight, and the team is not able to grasp and to change very quickly and get into a new kind of status, you're not going to make it, in my opinion. And then the last thing, maybe also that you learn again, is that how long it takes for certain things.
Thank you so much.
Then was it with the hot questions? I hope they were not too hot.
Not at all, not at all.
That you did not start to sweat too much. You already spoke now already a little about building a company, the do's and the don'ts for founders. If we would now still dig a bit deeper into this, what would be the advice you would give to somebody who's starting a business? Maybe we can extend this question a little. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to launch a business that is regulated, for instance? Is that somehow different?
Yes, it's very, very, very different. And it's very, very different because there's one element that makes it completely different and very complicated, is that you cannot start your activity unless you are authorized. I mean, if you have a normal business activity, you build up your stuff, you build up a web page, and generally you have the freedom just to test it. Okay, as quickly as possible, I build it, and then I bring it into the market, and then I see am I going to fail, yes or no? When it comes to regulated business, financial services are regulated, and it means if you would start this without the official regulator giving you the blessing, you go into prison. As simple as this. Okay, so that's not a good idea. So that makes that this entire journey is slightly more complicated. And let's speak about what is important in the journey, as you have said. Like, number one, as I told you, a business idea is basically worth nothing. It's cool to have it, but it is proven that in studies that have been made about successful startups, the good, the brilliant idea is number 9 of 10, something like that, or even 10 of 10. It's really coming at the end. What is more important is any idea that is not properly executed is worth nothing. I can dream of whatever I want, but that does not make reality. So what do you need to make an idea a reality? And then that comes back. What makes a success is for sure the right team, for sure. The capacity to, as I said, the capacity to really push that into realization. Then there's one element which is hard to control, timing. Timing can play for or against you. Timing play against you, well, that's not too good, even if you have a good team and so on and so on. So if you are too early, very, very early, well, you might need a lot of time until you survive, until the moment it gets hot. If you are too late, well, you are too late. So timing is an important element. Now, when we speak about timing, what is also very important, what can reduce that risk, is closeness to your consumer. Go as quickly as possible into the market to test your stuff. Why? Because it's your reality check. It's what all the investors want to see. Do you have an MVP, and does the MVP fit the market need? But also you can then constantly adjust that. And I say to anybody, like, try to do that as quickly as you can, really as quickly as you can. So, and there comes, of course, the hit with the regulation. As quickly as you can, you are not allowed. You have to wait until somebody opens the barrier. Okay, now you can. So after a long time of application, and in our case, it was more than 2 years of an application process, you're only allowed to test it with your consumer, which is complicated, which is really complicated. And definitely for the entire fine, and which is complicated, which also makes that the finance industry move so slowly in innovation, because already to test an innovation, it takes 2 years to get the authorization to test. Look, this is like, so that explains also why this industry is moving so slowly. So it would be good if also we would have more kind of sandbox kind of things that people could test in closer circles earlier. But okay, it is what it is. But so these other piece of advice: go as quickly as possible into the market and try to test what your product is. Something I would definitely say is one of the key factors. And even if I look hindsight on some of the moments, we could have been, even as a regulated place, be quicker on testing certain things, for sure. So that's another element which I would say is key in the entrepreneurship journey. Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. Some of these very successful entrepreneurs have also said it is two things: perseverance, for sure. I mean, there are moments where you say, like, maybe it's too big, maybe I should stop. But difference between people that have had success and didn't have success, because I think they all passed by that, is the ones that have had success have continued. So you have to have a lot of energy from time to time. It's good to doubt, it's good to put things in question, but then it's important to shake yourself and say, okay, here we go, next step. What is the next best step? I think that is very important. And the other thing is, the thing that I also learned in life, that if somebody tells you he has just had successes in his career, he's either a liar or he has been exceptionally lucky. Okay. So there are not so people that are exceptionally lucky. I mean, it's like the famous billionaire that won in the lotto game. The same is true in professional world. So failure is part of the success journey. That's what it is. So if you fail, it's not important, or the key thing is not the fact that you have failed. You have failed, try to analyze why, try to fix, try to see whether you can fix it and what you can change, stand up and go again. And I think that is something which is also very important. We have, in Europe, we are not particularly friendly to entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is about failing and standing up, failing and standing up, failing and standing up. And in Europe, we have a little bit this thing like failing, that's not possible and that's bad. Well, I mean, no, definitely people, I would think that people that have had successful careers, that are successful in sports, they all fail at a certain moment. And the difference is, do they stand up or do they stop there? And I think that is also something that I would tell anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur: be ready to fail, also calculate it in, it will happen. It's not important that it's not a disaster. The real thing is to take your lessons and do better. And that's really what it is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with us. It was a real pleasure to have this conversation with you. And congratulations on the great company and products you're building. Now, to conclude this episode, what would be, or let's phrase it differently, where can we see you next, or what is the next event for Invest3 Money Flow? And how can the community engage with you or your projects?
Well, community can engage with me and the project, of course, via Money Flow. I mean, we have open gates. If people have input, have something to say, more than happy. We engage also with the community in pushing all kind of news and all kind of information. We have, unfortunately, not a Money Flow investing school right now planned, but we for sure, I think, for the end of the year, is so busy. Maybe watch out for if you want to learn a little bit more about certain kind of principle of investing, principle of value investing, and how you can build your own financial freedom. Look out for Money Flow Investing School. We are doing some on web, so definitely I would say look out for that. Then there is for all the ones that have regionally some opportunities. There is the Luxembourg Blockchain Week. There is a day that is open to the public. Most probably we are going to be there. So happy to engage there. For the more freaky ones of you that are interested in blockchain and financial services, there's a podcast that is done by Invest3, the company that runs the app, and where we are going to be pretty technical. So if you just want to learn generic things, don't come to that spot. You would get bored. Yeah, and then now, as I said, I would invite everybody to download the app. You can download the app without fully onboarding. You can already look at all the products that we have on there, and you can start to play around with the value filters, with the financial filters. So that is definitely something which is an easy way to engage with us. And as I said, I mean, if you have suggestions, if you want to know stuff, reach out.
Thank you again, George, for joining us in this episode of World of Wonder, the Next Gen Eco production. We really enjoyed the conversation with you, and from us and from the community, best of luck to you and your team at Invest3. We wish you
Pleasure on my
always
side. Greetings to your community.